Thanks a lot, Charlie. Well, despite another just absolutely incredible effort from goaltender UC Saros, the Nashville Predators were unable to solve the Pittsburgh Penguins. But when they, to get started, they actually looked pretty good in the first period, which is a welcome change from what we've seen recently. But they just ran out of gas. And again, once again, we saw the inexperience of this team and the youth of this team, not being able to come together to be able to keep up with the much more veteran roster of the Pittsburgh Penguins. In fact, the team has changed so much, especially just from opening day, that it's almost, and in most measures, even statistically, a completely different team. And being a completely different team is going to be the topic of tonight's One Big Stat. Now, we've all heard the statistics, and we've heard the things about how many players are still on the roster today, on the active roster that played in the opener. And again, it's not pretty. It's a lot. There's a lot of loss, but when you want to look at the value of these players, or how much quality, how much skill, or scoring is being left out by injuries or trades, it's there's a lot of ways to measurement. You can look at goal production, you can look at point production, and so on and so on. However, but one of the best ways that I know to kind of evaluate on a whole team basis is using goals above replacement, or GAR, as we like to call it. Now, again, as usual, I'm using Evolving Wild statistics. They provide a pretty in-depth model with an explanation you can find on their website, which is a really great resource for anybody, whether you're fully interested or not in statistics. But let's talk about just how different. So on opening night, Nashville had a total team goals above replacement of plus 27, which is very impressive. I mean, it probably ranked right around the middle of the league at the time. But this was a team that was basically, comparing them to an AHL team, which is basically the ideal level of replacement. They would score about 27 more goals than replacement. So not too bad. They did peak quite a bit, actually, at the beginning of the year in 2023. In January, on that first game on the 3rd, the team peaked at a total goals above replacement of plus 33. But as we know, things changed, and they changed rapidly. As the calendar turned from January to February, we started seeing the injuries start to pile up, and we saw massive drops in team GAR in that time. Just in fact, the difference between the beginning of February and February 13th, they had fallen all the way to just plus 15, which 2 months earlier again was plus 33. And then we start to see more and more happen, with Matt Duchene kind of being one of the last of the high performing veterans that was left. But then he left the game a few games ago, and starting with the Boston game just earlier this week, Nashville finally passed the threshold and now has a negative team goals above replacement of -3. And it's pretty ugly looking at it now. They lost 24 of those just in the players that are injured. Now, they did actually, it wasn't all bad. I hate to say it that way, but players like Mikael Granlund leaving helped the Predators, because Mikael Granlund sits right now currently in the bottom 10% of the NHL. One of the, easily the worst performer on the Nashville team, even lower than, say, Dante Fabro or Jeremy Lauzon. So they did lose some of those players, but it's just too much that for them to be able to withstand the loss of, Roman Josi and Philip Forsberg, who combined account for 21.3 goals above replacement just by themselves. Add Duchene into that, losing Nino Niederreiter, and you're looking at just a massive difference. In this chart here, what you can see here is how each of those components breaks down on the team. So it's pretty obvious that when you look at even strength offense and defense, they got worse, and they got a lot worse. They started on offense at the beginning of the season at plus 24.6, but now currently sit at just 2.2. And defense, also a bad story. Now, it was already bad to start the year, just sitting under -1, but now they sit at a -8.1, and one of the worst teams at even strength in the entire league on defense. Now, we all know what the difference is. UC Saros is playing at an incredible level. He's second in the NHL for goaltenders in goals above replacement. He's getting very close and closing the gap between Elias Sorokin and having surpassed Linus Ullmark. So that was a pretty big gap before, but it is rapidly closing, and UC Saros is getting there. But you want to look at special teams, because that's the one thing that I thought was very curious. Special teams weren't very good. The power play was just average. I mean, just the very definition of average, but now it sits at plus 3.5. So they improved, and the penalty kill improved too. And we've all seen that as of late. What's the reason for this? I'm not sure. I couldn't tell you what the reason is for that. But it's nice to see that. And so you can see where Nashville is getting worse almost game by game just due to attrition. But these young players are still managing to win games. They're still in the playoff hunt technically, now sitting still 3 points behind out of a wild card spot with just one game in hand on Calgary and Winnipeg. But UC Saros is carrying this team, and he is carrying this team entirely on his back. By the time this season is over, this might be one of the more impressive regular seasons by a Nashville goaltender in history. So UC Saros, I don't know if this helps or not, but looking at these numbers hopefully should help convince some of the Vezina voters that yes, you absolutely deserve to be a finalist, and in my opinion deserves to win the trophy this year. And that's tonight's One Big Stat. Charlie?
The digital environment can be quite intimidating, time-consuming, and cumbersome, especially with all those other areas that need attention at your business, and that's why Stripe Digital Solutions is here to help. I know, because that's exactly what Stripe Digital Solutions did for me and the Renegades of Puck. From designing my home website and helping me create my merchandise to special event posters, brand building, and social media management. But it's not just that, it's so much more. Stripe Digital Solutions has helped me every step of the way. From startup to full-time operation, Stripe Digital Solutions has been there to assist and advise every single step of the journey. In today's fast-paced world, the path to success is having a strong digital partner, and nobody is better in the trenches than Brandy and Stripe Digital Solutions. Get the solution before it's even a problem with Stripe Digital Solutions.